early January 2010, Alain got a call, and he had to cut his Christmas holiday short because he had to go to Haiti for Operation Hestia for 3 months because of the terrible earthquake that happened there. Ivan was already in Afghanistan on Operation Athena, and he had just heard from his wife that she was pregnant and about to have their first child. Ryan, our youngest son, was on Canada's west coast, deployed on Operation Podium, where he was conducting security patrols at sea during the Vancouver Olympic Games. And me, I was still at home, a lighthouse. I always wanted to experience a little of what they went through instead of being the one always left at home. Alain had been deployed in 2008 and 2009 and told me about an opportunity for civilians to work in Afghanistan. By nature, I'm a risk-averse person. So my first reaction was, no way. In fact, I worked as a professional assessor for 20 years in a large insurance company. So I assessed risks. I didn't take risks. But he encouraged and challenged me to extend my limits, and so I applied, never dreaming that I would be accepted. While our troops were in Afghanistan, the Canadian Forces hired 300 civilians to operate a Tim Hortons to boost the soldiers' morale. I was very fortunate to be one of those 300. Each year, there were thousands of applicants, and there were a lot of hoops to jump through, including 2 weeks of intense training in Kingston, Ontario, which tested us in many ways, physically and psychologically. It was like a mini boot camp. We were constantly put under stressful situations and observed to see how we would react individually and how we would react with each other. One experience I'll never forget is having to don a gas mask and a gas suit before walking into a building filled with tear gas. But I did it. When my tour began at the end of April 2010, I recall seeing my reflection in the window of the airplane, thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? I must be crazy. Sorry, we have a phone coming in. There. It was your mother. So I wondered, what the hell am I doing? I must be crazy. Alain is finally the one at home being the lighthouse for a change, and here I am deploying halfway across the world into a war zone. What did I get myself into? When we landed at Kandahar airfield, known as CAF, I was first assaulted by the heat, as the temperature often reached over 50 degrees Celsius, and that was in the shade. It was... it was dry heat, but still, give me a break. Within 20 minutes of landing, I heard my first air raid siren and had to run to one of the nearby concrete bunkers to wait for the all-clear announcement to come over the tinny-sounding PA system. Later that day, there was a casualty of war. When this happened, communications were locked down across the base. As our son Ivan was still there, he had 5 days left on his tour, I was really disappointed not to be able to contact him. 2 days later, in the early morning hours, I attended my first ramp ceremony, during which the remains of a soldier were carried across the tarmac in a coffin covered in a Canadian flag to the sad sound of Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. It was heart-wrenching and impossible not to cry. As we lined up to prepare for the ceremony, you can imagine my surprise when I got a tap on my shoulder and I turned around and it was Ivan. It was surreal but comforting to be hugging my son while standing in a war zone halfway across the world from home. Rocket attacks were part of daily life at CAF. They occurred at all hours, so we had to have our flak jackets and helmets readily available and prepared to run to the nearest bunker. If they occurred in the middle of the night, the siren went off, very shrill sound, and we got out of our bunks and lay prone on the floor until we heard the all clear. Then we would report in. So they wanted to make sure that everybody was accounted for. One of these rockets hit our laundry, which put it out of commission for a few days. Not being able to do our laundry, we had to adapt. My solution was to downsize my bath towel. So I had great fun getting out of the shower, drying myself off with a face cloth. But you can get used to anything. We were housed in metal sea containers that we decorated and made like home. It helped with the loneliness of being over there. And there was a lot of dust. Dust was everywhere. It was fine, like talcum powder, and it got into everything. Do you remember the OK Corral in the old Westerns? The downtown portion of CAF was set up similarly. There was a wooden boardwalk surrounding an open, large open circle where sports games were often played, but no shootouts at sundown were allowed. The stores and restaurants were in containers as well, and attached, and they were situated all around the boardwalk, like in a big circle. Tim Hortons was not operated by the corporation. It wasn't for profit. It was operated by the Canadian military as a fundraiser for the military personnel. But we did follow the Tim Hortons standard operating procedures and even wore their hats, except ours had Tim Hortons Kandahar written on them. We joked about putting them on eBay when we came home, but I kept mine. Tim's was a big hit in CAF with all the countries there, many of whom complained when their tour ended that there would be no more coffee at home for them in their country. It sucks to be them. There was a lineup every morning, and the pace was unbelievably fast through our 8-hour shifts, 7 days a week with no days off. Tim served as a piece of Canada on foreign soil, and our soldiers loved it. It reminded them of home. To have civilians there brought sanity to the insanity of war. CAF was well protected within a high security compound with 2 perimeter fences, but it wasn't completely safe. The enemy knew where we were, and they attacked regularly. Most of the time, they couldn't do much, but every now and again, they try even harder, and it did get scary. I was working at Tim Hortons one night when I had my worst experience. I remember it was May 22nd because it was Ivan's birthday. That night made history when the insurgents actually breached the outer perimeter for the first time, and I believe the only time. We were crouched on the floor in the back of Tim's, listening to gunfire and rocket attacks. We didn't know what had happened, only that the gunfire was very close. It was terrifying when one particular rocket whistled through the air and made our container shake. Many of us screamed as we thought we were about to get hit. That rocket attack struck 7 meters from Tim's. We were in tears, and thank God that it was a dud. During my first 4 weeks there were many difficult times when I wanted to quit and go home. I talked to my sister, Betty, on the phone, and she would convince me to stay until Saturday. She says, "You can stay till Saturday." I thought, okay, I can do that, but then I'm going to quit, and I'm coming home on Sunday. So Saturday came, and I talked to her again, and she says, "Well, you did that 1 week. Can you do just one more week? Just 1 week, and then you can come home next week." And I thought, I can do that week. So it was a psychological game that I played to sort of help me get through it, and it did. It helped me. I spent over 4 months at Kandahar. I'm proud that I was able to go there. I even got a war medal. My grandfather, who fought at Vimy Ridge, we would be very proud of me. Would I do it again? No. Not a chance. But it gave me an appreciation for what our military people do for us and the sacrifices that they make. It also made me doubly proud of the career path that our 2 sons had chosen in the military and the great job they continue to do as members of the military today. It also gave me a new appreciation for all the things I take for granted here. We live in such a great country. We can live peaceful, boring lives without worrying about bombs or shots, being shot from moment to moment. I don't know how long that peaceful feeling will last. We've got tons of clean water, lots of beautiful green spaces to enjoy, and somewhat reasonable temperatures. My deployment in Afghanistan was a life-changing experience where my limits of tolerance were stretched above and beyond my comfort zone. I learned I was capable of more than I believed possible. Yes, I'll always remember 2010. It was the year I became Nana and went to war. Thank you.